Hello everyone, I'm Ramesh Mantri. I'm here to share an exciting investment opportunity from White Oak Mutual Fund. Introducing the White Oak Capital Consumption Opportunities Fund, a scheme that is designed to benefit from the immense potential of the consumption sector in India. What is there not to be excited about consumption in India? In a country of 147 crore people, where 60% of the GDP comes from consumption, the fastest growing large economy in the world, young population with a median age of 29, increasing participation of women are all factors that drive a long-term secular growth opportunity in the consumption sector in India. When we think of consumption, people often think narrowly about FMCG. Yes, that was true 20 years ago, but consumption is no longer just about FMCG. It is about beauty and wellness. It is about luxury. It is about apparel. It is about travel and tourism. It is about education tech. It is about home decor. It is about experiences. It is about auto sector and appliances, even healthcare, and even a large part of the ecosystem, including financial services, which enable consumption in India. Let's understand the opportunity in the consumption sector in India. Often when we compare consumption spaces, we compare India with the developed world like US. That's not an appropriate example because US per capita income is 30 times higher than India. The more appropriate country to compare is China. Let's just talk about beauty and personal care segment, where India's market today has the same size where China was 15 years ago. The Chinese spend 13 times more money than India on just eating out. They spend 6 times more money on apparel. If you think of a basic product like refrigerator, 99% of Chinese homes have a refrigerator versus 34% for India. And if you think of a much bigger category like cars, Indian car market has to grow 8 times from today's level just to be at the scale at which China market operates. That is the scale of opportunity that is there in the consumption sector. Let's talk now about the mega trends in consumption in India. The first mega trend in India is the shift from unorganized to organized sector. This shows up in across sectors, whether it is retailing, jewelry, apparel, footwear. The second big trend in India is the premiumization of consumption, which means whether it's buying an expensive detergent, buying an Apple phone, buying a bigger TV, and Indians are no longer asking the question, kitna deti hai, and buying the big SUVs. The third big trend is the emergence of the experience economy. And the biggest proof of experience economy is the big fat Indian weddings. And Indians are splurging money on travel and of course to buy Coldplay concert tickets. The next big trend, which has been a massive phenomenon in the decade, is e-commerce or consumer tech. It manifests in many forms, whether you're trying to buy a flight ticket, book a hotel, book a movie, buy fashion, buy beauty, or the recent explosion we have seen on quick commerce, which is a model that actually seems to be working and scaling up rapidly in India. There is another very interesting trend with all the premiumization is the explosion of value commerce in India, whether it's online or offline. In online, it manifests in a format like Meesho, where 1 in 7 Indians are buying online. On the other side, it's an explosion of a format like Zudio. And finally, the way you influence and reach the consumer is changing. Now, digital advertising accounts for more than 50% of advertising. Now, the way to reach the customer is through a YouTube, through an Insta, through a Facebook, through influencer marketing, and now even within in-app advertising. So why should someone be investing in a consumption fund? The first reason is, if you just take a global example, of the top 20 companies in the world by market cap, 10 are consumer companies, and 9 out of them are consumer discretionary companies. If you look at the data in India for the last 20 years, consumption sector indices have outperformed the broader market by 1.4% per annum, with much lower volatility. Even if you look at rolling returns, let's say 10-year rolling returns over the last 20-year period, a consumption index has always delivered double-digit return as per the past 2. And invariably, when markets fall or markets have poor performance, the consumption sector tends to outperform. So why does consumption sector outperform with lower volatility? First, in a country with a large young population and fast rising income, demand for consumer goods and services grow predictably. And because a lot of consumer items are essentials, even when economic shocks happen, the demand is resilient. Most consumer companies in India have very high market share. Often number of categories are oligopoly or duopoly in their construct. That gives tremendous pricing power to the market leaders. And consumer companies often have the benefit of strong brands and distribution. And finally, all this translates into very high return on capital, strong balance sheet, and free cash flow for these companies. The second reason for investing in a consumption fund now is the shift of government spending from capex to revenue expenditure. Various state governments, 15 of them in the last 18 months, have announced cash transfers to low-income groups. That's more money in the hands of consumers. Last year, we had the income tax cut in the budget, and a few months ago, we had the big GST cut. And in the next 12 months, we should have the 8th pay commission, salary hikes for 22 million employees. So clearly, all these measures, whether cash transfers to low-income groups, income tax cut, GST cut, and the 8th pay commission, is significantly big buying power in the hands of consumers. So these consumption boosters are already showing up in numbers. Strong demand for autos, record jewelry sales, continued strength in travel and tourism, and even uptake in grocery sales. And finally, this fund will benefit from the strong research capabilities of the White Oaks research team. The team covers over 180 stocks relevant to this scheme, and the universe is growing. They can leverage on the global experience of investing in consumer companies and benefits from our proprietary framework for evaluating consumer companies. Let me talk about one proprietary framework. For example, how do we think about growth of consumer companies? We believe growth of consumer companies should be looked at from 5 vectors. First is more consumers, more usage, premiumization, shift from unorganized to organized, and finally, whether a company can gain market share within the category. Different categories stack up different on these attributes. The best kind of the growth is the one that comes from more consumers and more usage. And finally, because of the way the value has been created globally in consumer, this portfolio will be overweight consumer discretionary and new age businesses. So friends, considering the fact that consumption sector has a long-term track record of outperformance with lower volatility, there's a clear catalyst where spends are shifting from capex to consumption. And finally, this fund benefits of White Oak's large and experienced team in the consumer sector. I invite all of you to invest in the White Oak Capital Consumption Opportunities Fund.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.